Hi, guys! Welcome back to the Law of the Empire podcast. I'm your host, Reina, and today we have the chance to talk to Devi Dewey. She's currently a PhD student at Johns Hopkins, and she's a part of their Advanced International Relations program. She's super informative, and today she talks to us about child malnutrition and her experience working at the World Bank and for the Indonesian government. She's super educated and she definitely knows what she's talking about. I thoroughly enjoyed my conversation with her, and I know that you will all love hearing her and learning so much from her. She also gives some advice to high school students who are looking to pursue careers in international relations or political economy, and she also gives advice for people who just want to change the world in general. So, without further ado, here's Devi. So,
Oh,
hi, could you tell me a bit about yourself and like what you're doing right now and like what your job is, what you're studying, and all of that stuff?
mhm. Right. So, hi, I'm Deviana. I go by
Hmm.
Devi. I'm a fifth-year PhD candidate at SAIS Johns Hopkins. I'm doing PhD in international development,
Hmm.
and at the moment, I'm working on my dissertation um, on the political economy of child malnutrition policy in Indonesia.
Wow. So, can you tell us a bit about what first got you interested in helping people through public policy and international development?
Yeah, I think it also I think 10 years ago. So after I finished my bachelor's degree in
Hmm.
international relations in Indonesia, I work for this nonprofit organization. I don't know if you've heard of them, World Vision. So I work for World Vision. So it's like an international nonprofit organization focusing on child well-being,
Hmm.
and I worked for them for 2 years after I graduated from my college in international relations. Because at the time I wanted to work for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, but then there was no recruitment. So instead of being a diplomat for my country, I became a diplomat for the community, and working at the grassroots level. And then that's how I got to know that for me nutrition grew on me, as I lived in this rural remote area in Indonesia for 2 years. That like, okay, like if you want to change the whole story, we can change the beginning from the story, which is like the early nutrition in a child's life. That can be like the best investment that we can give.
Hmm.
And so I think because it's also cross-cutting issue, right? Because malnutrition is not just about lack of food or like hunger, but it's also like relating to any other aspect,
Hmm.
like access to healthcare, access to water, improved drinking water and sanitation. But also the root is about inequality and poverty. So I feel like from that, I yeah, I went and from that I went to the UK to pursue my master's in development studies to kind of like get more knowledge and also like some technical skills with regard to development in general.
Wow, okay. So you mentioned the political autonomy earlier in your answer. So what exactly is political autonomy and how does it connect to food and nutrition?
Yeah, so basically, like, if we talk about political economy in general, it's like the study of, the relationship between a nation's economy, its political landscape, and public policy, right?
Mhm.
And like how that pertains to food and nutrition, because I mean, first we need to know that the malnutrition in children especially, like it has three layers of causes, right? So the first one is immediate causes. It's basically like inadequate dietary intake and poor health, right? When children are prone to diarrhea, they can just like immediately sick, and then of course like malnourished. But also, like there's a second layer, which is underlying causes that includes like household food security, and also whether or not the child is having the kind of right care practice at the household level, but also whether or not the household is having access to healthy living condition, right? But
Mhm.
then like the third aspect is the basic causes that relates to economic, political, social, and environment and cultural factors. forming child nutrition. So
Mhm.
basically, these basic causes are the most overlooked. Because when people think about like malnutrition or like hunger, they think about like lack of food or disease, right? But
Mhm.
actually, like the basic causes are mostly neglected and overlooked, and that is constitutive of political economies, and that consists of competing interests, incentives, ideologies, but also like different actors with direct and
Mhm.
indirect interest in nutrition, and that results to perpetuating the issue or addressing the issue.
Mhm. So, like, if the landscape at the time is like more polarized or like more politicized, do you like notice like an increase in child malnutrition, or is there like a relationship between the two?
Yeah, yeah. So it's like it's like a complex interaction between those two things, right?
Mhm. Okay, got it.
Yeah.
So your research right now focuses on child malnutrition and stuff like that. So why is it important for kids and families around the world?
Yeah, I think so I am interested in the policy process. Like for instance,
Mm-hmm.
uh, 10 years ago when I was working for this organization, World Vision, like it was so hard to get the government buy-in commitment to invest in child nutrition, right? Because, I mean, compared to investing in physical infrastructure like bridges, for instance, you can see or like maybe for roads, you can
Mm-hmm.
see the impact immediately. You can see the results. But if you try to convince the government to invest in nutrition, the impact is intangible and but it's also like long term, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that what makes it like more challenging, like generating political commitment to invest in child nutrition is more challenging in that sense. So I'm interested, like, like what made Indonesia, for instance, when I was living in this rural area, like it was so hard to get the commitment from the government to invest in nutrition, and now everybody talks about stunting. So stunting is like one form of child malnutrition when a child is too short for the age.
Okay.
Yeah, for the yeah, so like yeah, it's like a low height for age. So like when a child is too short for the age, and then it serves as an accurate marker of underdevelopment and poverty
Mm-hmm.
across countries as well. And stunting is now one of the indicator for human capital index by the World Bank as well. So I'm interested like what made an issue that used to be neglected
Mm-hmm.
gain traction to be a policy priority.
Mm-hmm. So
So
like
if
that's so interesting. So it's like basically how governments can like become interested in issues like child malnutrition. So like
exactly
how do things like child malnutrition get on their radar? Like what's the
exactly
process
yeah, the
in
agenda
making it
setting.
happen?
Exactly, and the policy process, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because yeah, I mean, when we know that like it's important, but also at the same time, the government has so many things to do, right? And then
Mm-hmm.
like, so how do an issue competes to get the attention of policymaker? How it could be because this policy in particular in Indonesia, it was also implemented in a staggered manner. So it started with the first 100 districts in 2018, and then it became gradually implemented in all 514 districts in Indonesia. So I'm also interested in, like seeing the impact of the policy using some kind of like secondary data, like econometrics.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so that's like, so basically my dissertation
Uh-huh.
is the first part is about the agenda setting, why and how stunting reduction gained traction to be a policy priority in Indonesia, and also like how it was implemented. So I talk about the policy implementation because when we talk about nutrition, it's a cross-cutting issue, right? It's not just about food, it's also about health, about social protection, about water and sanitation. So it's like multi-sectoral. So how the government or the bureaucracy implements this policy through vertical and also like horizontal
Mm-hmm.
coordination across sectors. And the third one is about policy implementation, policy evaluation.
So is there like a certain policy you've noticed in like Indonesia that's really worked to target child malnutrition?
Mhm.
Like, is there like a certain one, or are they like all just kind of around the same level of success?
Right. So I think yeah, that's quite tricky
Mhm.
because the problem is like when like there's some kind of like evaluation studies, but the problem with the measuring the success of policy that targets malnutrition is because, again, because malnutrition is multi-causal, right? Like
Mhm.
it's again like and then because it's multi-causal, sometimes we have to, I think, the challenge is like to figure out like what intervention works best and then most effective compared to the other one. Like for instance, is it providing, say, like cash transfer for the household that are not able to go to the health clinic on their own, right? Like because this kind of examples are particularly successful in terms of malnutrition reduction in Latin America through this like social protection cash transfer programs. But again, because this is like an intersectoral issue,
Mhm.
so that's why like it needs multi-sectoral policy.
Mhm. So, what's something surprising you've learned about how decisions in government really get made?
I think the first one is that like, technical knowledge is not
Mhm.
enough. So I guess like when, when I was like my in my early years of getting interested in this policy, I was just thinking like, okay, as long as we can get the evidence, that's enough, but it's not. So like I think in my research, I found out that like, okay, so it's also important to have some kind of like norm entrepreneur. So it's like somebody who can also, mainstream the norm
Mhm.
about like, okay, it's really important to invest in child nutrition for the human development, but also for economic development, right? So, so we need this kind of like people that can mediate
Yeah.
this process, but also at the same time, like and I also got to learn that there's a difference between a condition and
Mhm.
also a problem. So a condition is like when the government see, okay, there's an issue, but they don't know what to do about that. Well, a problem is like, okay, this is an issue, and I know what I can do about that. But then, like for an issue to move from being a condition to a problem, it needs to know, right, what kind of policy solution. So I guess like and I learned that like at least through my research that it is also important to learn from other countries
Mhm.
about any best practice to address some certain issue. We call
Mhm.
that policy learning. And then in this case, the Indonesian government, they went to Peru in 2017 to learn from Peru like how to address child stunting. And
Oh,
then, so,
okay.
yeah, exactly. So, this kind of like study visit also, I think, yeah, I think it's so interesting to kind of explore that, like, okay, because some people they can get skeptical, right? It's just like another study visit or knowledge exchange, but like in this case, it really did have impact.
Hmm. Yeah, of course. Also, like such like a direct impact on like the future generation, because like all these children who are like malnourished are like the future like leaders and like business people of the
Yeah,
future.
yeah,
So
exactly.
yeah. So you've worked in Indonesia, the UK as a practitioner and a researcher, and with the Australian government managing the World Bank programs in Indonesia. What's that been like?
It's been really interesting
Mhm.
because, I mean, especially if you're interested in development in general, right? So like, I mean, I started from the grassroots level. And that's why like after I graduated from my undergrad degree, I didn't want to work in the capital city. I wanted to see, like the rural part of my country, Indonesia. But then also like, so that was me as a project coordinator in the community level, and then like I wore another hat as a researcher when I did my master's in the UK, and then that kind of like helped me to appreciate, okay, this is the value of knowledge, like when I was in the field, like I was too busy doing activities one over the other, but then like I didn't have enough time to reflect, am I doing the right thing? And then that is the role of knowledge as a researcher to fill in. And then like and then I returned 2016
Mhm.
to Indonesia, right? And then I worked for nonprofit there, but also like for the Australian government Foreign Affairs and Trade, DFAT, Australian embassy in Jakarta, working on the World Bank investment in poverty and social development. And I realized that, like, my experience when I was in the field, that's like something that nobody can take away from me, because I guess like part of the challenge at the moment, many development practitioners or like maybe policy workers at the capital city, we are trapped in our like capital, in this like skyscrapers and everything, and sometimes we think like we know best, coming seeing that from the literature and everything, but then like we have to have the humility
Mm-hmm.
to also learn, okay, how does this work on the ground.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I got from my formative experience back in this rural village in Indonesia, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 1000%. So like they like a chance to have like a look at both perspectives and like both sides of the issue, which must have been so helpful.
Exactly. Yeah. Like, especially like, for people who are interested in development, like, of course, we have this value, right? Like, we want to help change the world for the better in any way, but also that means we have to know what it's like to be, in other people's shoes.
Yeah. And just like more empathy and like more like feelings and respect for them, like living the way they live and like understanding everything they've been through.
Exactly.
So when rich countries give money to help others, what do they do right and what do they sometimes get wrong? Like in situations of like malnutrition or other issues when they try to help or aid other countries.
Yeah, so I think it depends on the issue, right? Like for instance, I think like I think I'll start with like what they did wrong.
Mhm.
For instance, is most of them, like a lot of this like development assistance, they have this like one size fits all solution. Like what works in country A must work in country B, and then like the people didn't bother to invest enough time to get to know or to do some kind of like assessment of like what the country specific context and knowledge and like fact. At the same time, it works for some kind of like non-communicable or like disease like COVID, for instance. We know, okay, the vaccine, that's a universal solution, right? But
Hmm.
then like for other issues, say like maybe again malnutrition, for
Hmm.
example, because like it has many causes. So like we need to invest time as well to get to know what is the cause of this in this particular country, in this particular area. So I feel like, yeah, it's a trade-off at the same time, because sometimes we do not have much time and
Hmm.
resource to get to know that, that to have
Yeah.
like an in-depth knowledge about a certain country. But I think it's worth deeper.
Yeah, so like a lot of countries often kind of just like do the same kind of like aid package to like multiple like underprivileged countries at the same time without like really analyzing and assessing what that country really needs to improve in their underdeveloped areas.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
kind of doubt it.
exactly, exactly. And
That's so.
I think it requires humility, you
Hmm.
know, yeah. I think everyone, any development practitioner or scholar, if we go to another country, and most of them are lower middle income country or in the global south, we need the humility again to relearn ourselves. Like, okay, I have this like background knowledge, but how it will apply to this context, that's gonna be another thing.
Yeah, 1000%. Like, put yourself in that country's shoes and like, those people's shoes. You're living that life day to day instead of just having this like high horse sitting in an office just overlooking everything.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
like, what would you tell a high school student who wants to make a difference in the world?
Yeah, well, I think like I like what Gandhi said, be the change you want to see. So I think like I mean in terms of like food and nutrition security, there is just like one simple thing that we can do. So, okay, but first thing first, I just need to know, I need to remind ourselves that, like, at the moment, we live in a world where one third of all food production is lost or wasted annually. While at the same time, we have one in nine people globally still suffer from hunger, which means if we can eliminate food waste, we can feed the world's hunger. But at the same time, like, okay, I think this is a very interesting graph that I want to share with you.
Mhm.
So I wrote this, wait, no, Oh no, I need to send request.
Oh yeah, allow.
Okay, so like there was this um right, right. So like food waste, right? At the
Uh-huh.
moment, so okay, so this is the blog that I wrote a couple of years ago, and I
Oh.
feel like, and I made an argument like if you want to save the planet and fight hunger, just one simple act: do not waste your food.
Hmm.
Have to simply just finish our meals. Why? Because first, look at this. So this is for me, this is fascinating. At the moment, in terms of this um, the food loss and waste, right? So like basically food loss and waste are like all of this food that just basically wasted or lost, right? Because of, it doesn't go to consumption. And then at the moment, all of the world's food loss and waste, it is just like the third contributor, after China and the US for the global anthropogenic GHG emissions. So I guess like it's I think it's yeah it's morally ethical as well for us to finish our meals because
Hmm.
we know that like yeah in some other peoples of the world they're still hungry, and but also at the same time it's kind to the environment as you see that like any food waste that goes to the landfills, it emits
Hmm.
CH4, which is
Hmm.
methane, right? And it's like 21 times more powerfully than carbon dioxide. So yeah, so I feel like that's just like one thing that we can
Hmm.
do.
Yeah.
Um, because I think like food waste or like not finishing our meal, just wasting our food is like one invisible sin that we do. But we just took it for granted, and maybe because we don't know, right, how it impacts the environment and the world's food security. But
Mhm.
also, I think, yeah, if we can also advocate for that. So, for instance, when I go out with my friends in a restaurant or anything, and then I will just kindly ask, like, oh, would you take that for home, or like, would you want to take a box if you couldn't finish it?
Hmm.
So something like that.
Yeah, because like it's such an easy step to take for yourself. It's such an easy way to actually actively help the world and other people because like finishing the food on your plate is like such an easy thing to do. Yet so many people overlook it because they're like, oh, who cares? It's not that deep. I'll just throw it away.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, again, I think just like one simple way that we can do here and now, to
Hmm.
help the planet and also like other people's in other part of the world, I
Yeah,
think.
totally. So my last question for you is, what are some small ways young people can start thinking about global issues like poverty, hunger, or equity?
Yeah, I think like sometimes I feel like at the moment we just need to also like bring this conversation over and over again, right? Because
Hmm.
sometimes I guess like the challenge is like people are just so attached to the social media and then like the phone screen time and everything. So I feel
Hmm.
like if we could also like just increase peers awareness about this kind of issue, right? Like okay, for instance climate change, like it's real, and
Hmm.
then like and all of the small things that we can do, so like just for instance, okay, just do not forget to turn off your aircon when you leave the room or anything like that. So I think like it all starts small from
Hmm.
like our like direct conversation with each other, but also like maybe I think we can also start increasing this kind of like public awareness about this kind of issue by also like say something about that on our social media as well, like
Hmm.
um yeah, to help each other think beyond ourselves, you know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. Like just like do like the small actions and like accumulate over time to like make a bigger change, even if they don't realize it right now. Like the bigger picture
Exactly.
is much bigger than just like the small actions that accumulate together to create something that can actually make a substantial change.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And never underestimate all of the small acts, And that also means like our choice, for instance. And I mean at the moment we have to fight with our current food system that just produce too much sugar and ultra processed food.
Mhm.
And then so for instance, if we just, when you hang out with your friends and then instead of going for junk food, then you will go the extra mile to pick some other food. So that can also be like an inspiring act,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah, 1000%. Well, thank you so much for coming on. This was so helpful. I learned so much, and I know everyone else did too. Thank you.
Thank you so
I would like to give one final thanks to Devi for coming on the podcast today and sharing so much amazing information with us. Thank you all for listening to the Law of the Empire podcast. Remember that new episodes are uploaded every other week on Wednesdays, and you can follow us on Law of the Empire on Instagram, where we post new stories every single week. Thank you all so much for listening, and I hope you have a great rest of your week.